view of the farm from the county appraiser's website. And in this view, you can see the old farm here, this big triangle, with the old ranch house and the swimming pool and the barn. And the driveway came, that's East Cart Lane. And I think the driveway comes off here and then it goes parallel along for a while, and then it does that dog leg, and then it goes up to the house like that. And this 2 acres was attached to the farm, but that's the 2 acres that I retained that then was landlocked because there was no way to get to it. And then I bought this 14-ish acres to make a total of 16 acres. And I entered this property on Branding Iron Way here. And this part of Branding Iron Way is an easement, and it's not my land. But from this point forward, I think it's still considered Branding Iron Way, but it's a track that just gets smaller and smaller until it just completely peters out by about here. And then all these properties along here they have their legal address on Fanning Point. So I'm the only person who has an address, a mailing address of Branding Iron. So this property is 1571 and 1575 Branding Iron Way, and this property is 1653 Branding Iron Way. Well, you should recognize this because that's the old farm on the left, although they've added a big gate entrance, and then the new farm on the right with the dirt track. So even though you come off the tarmac at this point, my land actually doesn't begin until quite far back, probably where the wooden fence on the left ends, because this part of the driveway is an easement. This is looking back down the easement, which is, I think Mark said, about 50 foot wide to the main road. So this is the Branding Iron Lane easement. So from here down to the gate is actually not my land. But then in the opposite direction, so from that yellow rope there and that no trespassing sign, and then in this direction is all my land, and on the left is the old farm. I've tried to zoom in a little bit more so you see less of Branding Iron Way here and less of the old farm. This is the orientation of this shot, this overhead shot is on a north-south orientation. So this is Branding Iron Way, and then this is the driveway, this is the house, this is the barn. In here is a broken down old stable. This is a burnt out mobile home. This is another mobile home that can't really be salvaged, but it's a little bit better. The pump and the well for the property are around here. My eastern boundary line is very, very overgrown and hard to access in some places. One of my neighbors here has a very good fence on his side, but most of them have very broken down fences. My neighbor here on the north, that they have just purchased this property, and they have come along and they have removed all of this vegetation on their side of the fence and maybe 1 foot in on my side of the fence, but they've just shredded everything and made a very wide alleyway here, and then they put in their new fence. I've got some video of that which I'll incorporate in this presentation. But I might have to think about doing the same thing, because now there's their fence, and at certain points along here I have 3 fence lines on my side of the property where it looks like nobody has been willing to clear it, so they've just put a fence in front of a fence in front of a fence. And that would be my option here, to put a fence in front of all the vegetation, but then I lose more and more feet of my land, and I should really just do the right thing and take that vegetation out and go back to my boundary line, put my fence line in there, and then plant a windbreak in front of it. So continuing to look down Branding Iron Way, to the right is this 7+ acre field, but my boundary fences are not really up to scratch. So here I think you can just see some posts and a little wire strung across the top, and then a little bit further back where the neighbor has a good fence, he's fenced his property, so my side is also secure, but that's only for a small section of the boundary. So for example, this is my eastern boundary, and there's just this little piece of wire, and this is the kind of thing that is beyond me. But then as I follow my boundary in a north direction, here's the other neighbor who has a good fence. So that's my eastern neighbor on one side and my land on the other side. East on the right, my land on the left. You can see where his nice fence ends, and then this is my problem, because my fence goes through there somewhere, but to get to it I'd have to cut back all of this vegetation. In some places the fence is okay, like here I think. I can't quite tell if you can see that on video. And then the vegetation is not too bad, it's just sporadic saplings, which there are mowers and that kind of equipment that can come and clear that quite easily. But in other places, accessing the fence is going to be so difficult, and I'll show you that. So this is still, I'm in the 7 acre field. That's my driveway where you can see that small car, and the house is just to the right. And then this line of trees that you can see here that runs essentially east-west and runs straight into my north-south boundary on my north side. It actually used to be a fence line, and this is all the vegetation that grew up in the fence that was never taken care of, which it just goes to show you that because it was in a fence line, it was never grazed or mowed, and now it's that big and it's all rubbish vegetation really. So I'm not quite sure, but I need to get to the posts and the barbed wire that's running around in there at a minimum. This is where it's really difficult because it's all brambles and it's vines, and somewhere in there is my fence line, and I have to really clear out what's in front of it, because I can't fence in front of it and lose half of my land, well not half of it but some of it. So I've got to tackle all this to get to my fence line, and my neighbor who lives through there. You can see, I think, a trailer there. He is a heavy equipment operator, and I think he's quite knowledgeable, and he might be able to do some of this land clearing for me, because I just don't think that I can do that with a handheld device or a mower. It is, the sun's beginning to go down, so it's almost getting to that witching hour. This is a view of the field, but I don't know that I could even bring cattle in here to graze it, because it's all brambles. It's hard to even walk through. And then that broom sedge, I think it is, it's taller than me. And so I'm beginning to understand why Mark has said we should just get someone to come in here and clear. But I still don't want to do that. I want to do it a little bit more, what's the word? Discerningly. This is the boundary on my north side, and this neighbor just recently bought this property, and he had the same situation as I had. So what you can see he did is he cleared from his fence to his land, and he cleared a little bit on my side as well, and then he put in this new fence. And so he's still kept some of his privacy and some of his windbreak that had grown up in this property line between us that has been discarded for so long. And he's put in a really, really nice sturdy fence. So that is an idea and something that I should consider, but he has a lot more money than I do. Some old stables. I'm out of breath trying to get here, having to lift my feet so high to get over all the vegetation. Nothing really you can do with these except just knock them down and maybe use the wood for something rustic. But those are the stables, so in quite close proximity with the barn, which is there. And then that big oak tree is in the backyard of the house. And I think, can we see the house? That's the house there. And then if I just zoom out before I make you feel ill, that white fence over there is the driveway which leads to the dirt track, the Branding Iron, quote unquote, private road. And here is the barn, and it does look terrible, but believe it or not, it's actually not as bad as it looks, because the line in the front that dips down like that is actually what the sliding doors are hanging on, and inside the ridgeline looks better. I know that doesn't really ring true when you're looking at it from this angle, but it actually weirdly is. And I think it can be saved, and it's very useful. It's on a massive piece of concrete, which is so expensive. So there's 3 huge bays in the front, and then there's another big bay in the back. This is the west wall of the barn, and then that is the extra bit of barn behind it, which again, I'll just walk towards it so you can get a scale of how large it is. Glenn has some stuff stored in here at the moment. So you can see there's a quad bike there, and then 2 motorbikes there. So it's quite large, and all this concrete I just feel has such amazing value to it. So even in a worst case scenario, if the whole structure had to be pulled down, you'd still have the concrete, and the structure is really just wood and mabati. But like, look at that, looks so bad. And this is the back of the house, which is directly opposite the barn. So this is kind of the back garden. That's a lovely live oak tree on the left. The door all the way on the left is a door into the garage. The big windows here are the master bedroom windows, and the next set of windows are the sitting room, and then a little loo, and then a guest bedroom. So I think it would be really nice to have a veranda running down the whole length of the back of the house, and then open up the back with sliding glass doors or big bifold doors like what you have. The smaller window and the window next to it, which is the guest bedroom, those are recessed back, which I'm not sure how well you can see that. But so I don't know, in my head it feels a bit awkward to have this part of, if there was gonna be a veranda that ran the whole length, then it would be narrow along there and then very wide here. I'm not 100% sure how to configure it, but I don't really have the funds for it right now anyway, so I suppose it's not today's worry. Just, I feel that over time it would be nice to have a veranda or somewhere to sit comfortably outside. This is the front of the house. To the left is a guest bedroom. So there are two guest bedrooms. I quite like the layout because there are two guest bedrooms and a bathroom on the left side of the house. And then the middle of the house is a little bit awkward with two living areas. It's completely open plan, two living areas in the kitchen. And then on the left is the garage, and behind the garage is the master bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. But it's quite nice that guests are almost in their own wing on one side of the house. This is looking down the driveway towards Branding Iron Way. And this very old white fence will have to come out. And again, you can see all these saplings that if they would have just been weed whacked or trimmed when they were small, I wouldn't have this problem. But nobody took care of this property, and then they grew up and they became trees. And now really I don't know if the wood can be saved, but whatever it is, it all has to be ripped out, and then if some of it can be saved, it can be put back, but it probably won't be able to be saved. We'll see. Not today's problem. This is a view of standing on the driveway, the house straight ahead, and then off to the right is the 7-acre field where I would initially have cows grazing. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of trees, which is good because they'll need shade in the summer. But around the bottoms of all the trees should really be mown and cleared. And then beyond the trees, sort of back there, it just turns into real scrub land, and it would just be hard, I think, for cows to get through. So I want to keep the trees, but a lot of the bush needs to be removed, I think. So this is coming down the driveway. I'm differentiating between the driveway and Branding Iron Way, which is sort of the driveway, but it's the private road. So the house is now behind me. The old farm is in front of me. To the right is where Branding Iron Way just turns into a dirt track, and that leads to the mobile homes. And then to my left, hope I'm not making you feel sick, to my left is Branding Iron Way that leads out. So the fence on the right is the boundary with the old farm, and there is no fence on the left. So I need to put a fence in on the left parallel to the road. And I could do it, you know, quite close to the road here, but I think that I will make it the width of the easement so that it's quite wide. And in fact, you can see some old posts here. Is that one there? Yes, right there. And then I can put a windbreak in front. The reason that these trees along here, you can see they're sort of quite hacked back like that, one there, because of the power lines. So the power company comes and they cut all these trees back. But if I put my fence slightly further away and then I just did a bushes or windbreak of bushes, maybe native plants along that fence line, then there wouldn't be anything for them to come and hack and ruin. So I think that might work. This is a path that Mark has mowed from the mobile homes to the house. So I don't know exactly, I think he just used a mower. I'm not sure if it was there before, but on either side it looks like that and like that. So you can imagine that something that looks like this path could be a field, but where the cows would graze something like this, I don't know. So I'm panning away from the house and then kind of into the sunset, and it's at this end of the property where the two mobile homes are. So I think you can probably see one there through the trees. So that's to the right, one of the mobile homes. It's the one that's in the worst condition. There's absolutely no saving it whatsoever. It's burnt out or just don't know, but it's totally gone. And all this grass it's horrible, really. It's like a razor grass. It's got such a sharp edge to it. I don't know if cattle would graze that, but once it's mowed, it doesn't come back as strongly. And then there's the other mobile home, which looks like it's in slightly better condition, but it's not salvageable. There might be some useful mabati and some useful timbers, and then underneath they are on some sort of steel girders or something like that, so that could go to a scrap yard for some for sale, or I don't think I could repurpose them, I don't know. Oh, and then ahead, that shiny thing, that's the well, that's the pump for the well under the water, under the earth. I thought I'd just turn the camera around, see if I can walk and talk at the same time. So that's a little preview of the farm. There's so much work to do. In some ways it feels overwhelming, but it also feels really exciting. And I feel as though I've got a lot of resources to help me, and also I can just try and remind myself that it is a lifetime project, a lifelong project, so I don't need to get it all done really, really fast. All right, that's it for now.